The wooden floor of the hall carries the weight of memory. For 11 years, bare feet have struck these same planks over and over until the grain has darkened into something more like stone than timber. Tonight, the floor seems to hold its breath in anticipation. Smoke from burning incense hangs at shoulder level, dense enough to taste, slowly curling upward toward a ceiling blackened by decades of the same haze that never fully dissipates. Along the back wall, painted eyes stare down from framed portraits. Men who have been dead for generations. Men whose names are murmured before every match, like a quiet prayer that no one questions. A woman stands at the center of the room. Her breathing is measured and unhurried, the kind of composure that takes 11 years to cultivate. She has done this before. She will do it again tonight. She does not yet realize that in less time than it takes to speak this sentence aloud, everything she believes about herself will be challenged by someone who isn't even trying to challenge her. Somewhere across the room, a second figure waits, still and almost indifferent. Nobody in the hall has bothered to learn his name yet. They will. By the end of tonight, the memory of 9 seconds of silence will stay with her for the rest of her life, not because she lost, but because of what she discovered instead. We are not telling you how this fight ends. We are telling you that when it ends, everyone in that room will remember exactly where they were standing. Chinatown, San Francisco, 1965. This is the story of the night. The Chung Kung Fu Association's undefeated champion walked into the one fight she never trained for. Her name is May Lin Chu. She is 27 years old, and for 11 years no one, not a single challenger, not a rival school, not a single man who has stepped onto this floor believing his size would determine the outcome, has managed to put her on her back. She wakes before dawn. She wraps her own hands. She does not wait for her students to arrive before she has already run the forms twice, because the forms are not exercised to her. They are proof, repeated daily, that the body she was born into is not a mistake that needs correcting. Her grandfather founded this hall. His portrait hangs highest on the wall, directly behind the spot where challengers are made to bow before they face her. She has heard more times than she can count, in rooms where people forgot she could hear them, that a woman would never sit in the master's chair. No one has said it to her face in years. They stopped needing to. Every fight she wins says it for them, more permanently than words ever could. Tonight there is a challenger, a stranger recommended by one of her own senior students. A young man visiting from out of town, the student said, someone who trains, someone respectful, someone who asked politely if the champion of the Chung Association might do him the honor. She didn't ask his name. She rarely does anymore. After 11 years, names stopped mattering. Only the shape of the fight mattered, and she already knew the shape of this one before he walked through the door. She was wrong. She just didn't know it yet. If a story like this, someone spending years proving they belong in a room that never fully welcomed them, has ever felt personal to you, that's exactly the kind of thing I want to hear in the comments later. But first, before we get into what happens tonight, I want to say something to the people who have been watching these videos and writing in. A lot of you reached out after the last story asking where you could go deeper, not just into the myths, but into what Bruce Lee actually did day by day to become the person these stories are told about. So as a thank you, I put together a free short ebook, Bruce Lee's 5 Secret Life Rules. It's not a sales pitch. It's just 5 principles pulled directly from how he actually trained and thought, condensed into something you can read in 15 minutes. The link is in the description if you want it. No cost, just something I wanted to give back to this community. Now, back to the hall in Chinatown and the fight that's about to happen. One that, from the moment it starts to the moment it ends, will last exactly 9 seconds. The senior student who arranged tonight's match is a man named Wei Jiang. 11 years ago, he was the first person Min defeated in this hall. A 19-year-old boy, cocky, certain that the founder's daughter would fold under real pressure. She didn't fold. She put him on the floor in front of 40 witnesses, and instead of leaving in shame, he asked to become her student the following week. He has stood at the edge of this room for every fight she's had since. Tonight, like every night, he stands near the door, arms crossed, already sure of how this ends. The stranger arrives a few minutes past 7. He is not what anyone expected, not because he's small, though he is smaller than most men who challenge her, but because of how he moves. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't scan the room the way challengers usually do, cataloging exits or sizing up the crowd for intimidation. He simply walks in, removes his shoes at the door without being told to, and waits near the entrance with his hands loose at his sides, watching the room the way someone watches weather, with mild, unhurried interest. Wei Jiang greets him quietly. A few words are exchanged. Nobody else in the hall is paying close attention yet. To them, he is simply the next name on a long list of men who came here to lose. Min finishes her final stretch and turns to face him for the first time. He is lean in a way that could be mistaken for slight if you didn't know how to read a body properly. She does know how to read a body. 11 years of reading exactly this, the difference between someone who lifts weight and someone whose strength lives somewhere else, in tendon and timing rather than bulk. She reads him in under 2 seconds and files him where she files most challengers, capable, perhaps dangerous, but unlikely. You asked for this, she says, not unkindly. It's simply how she opens every match, a chance for the challenger to reconsider before the bowing begins. I did, he says. His accent carries Hong Kong under a layer of California. I hope that's all right. Something in his tone catches her briefly. Not arrogance, not nerves, but something closer to genuine pleasantness, as if he were asking to borrow a chair rather than requesting to test the honor of an entire lineage. She doesn't have time to examine the feeling. The elders are already seating themselves along the side wall. The portraits are already watching. It is time to begin. They bow to the wall of ancestors first, then to each other. The room settles into the particular silence that precedes every match here. Not quiet exactly, since 60 or so onlookers rarely manage true silence. But a held quality, the sound of people trying not to make sound. Min drops into her stance. It is the same stance that has ended every challenge in this hall for over a decade. Weight low, hands high, coiled the way a spring is coiled. Patient, because patience has never once cost her anything. Across from her, he doesn't drop into anything. He stands almost the way he stood at the door. Loose, upright, his hands come up but barely, more suggestion than guard. Somewhere in the crowd, someone laughs quietly. Not cruel, just the small human sound of watching a man who doesn't seem to understand what he's walked into. Min doesn't laugh. 11 years have taught her that the ones who look least ready are sometimes the ones worth watching most closely. But even she, in this moment, allows herself the smallest exhale of certainty. Whatever he is, he does not look like 11 years' worth of a problem. The signal is given. She moves first. She almost always moves first. It's a habit built from 100 fights where hesitation cost her opponents everything and cost her nothing. Her opening combination is the one that has ended more challenges in this hall than any other in her arsenal. A feint high, drawing the eye up, followed immediately by a low sweeping strike meant to take the legs before the mind has finished reacting to the feint. It is fast. It is precise. It has worked 11 years running. It does not connect. Not because he blocks it, not because he catches her wrist or pivots away with some flourish designed to impress the room. He simply isn't where the strike expects him to be. Her leg completes its arc through empty air, and by the time her balance resets, he has already retreated half a step. No further than that, just enough. And stopped there, hands still open, still low, watching her the way he watched the room when he walked in, unhurried, unbothered. The room does not laugh this time. She resets faster now, chaining directly into the follow-up she rarely needs. 3 strikes meant to close distance and end a fight that hasn't already ended. Each one finds the space where he isn't. Not by much, never by much. He is not sprinting away from her, not scrambling, not doing any of the things a frightened or overmatched opponent does. He is simply, consistently, exactly half a step ahead of every decision she makes, as if he had already seen the fight before it started and simply declined to participate in the parts of it that didn't interest him. 9 seconds, that is all it takes. 9 seconds from the first strike to the moment May Lin Chu, undefeated for 11 years, finds herself standing in the center of her own hall with her fist still closed in the air where her final strike should have landed, and hasn't. He has not thrown a single strike of his own. The room has gone entirely silent, not the held silence of anticipation from before. A different silence, the kind that arrives when 60 people simultaneously realize they are watching something they don't have a name for yet. Min's fist stays raised for a moment longer than it should. She is looking at the empty space in front of her. The space where 11 years of training told her a body was supposed to be. There is nothing there. There is only him standing exactly where he chose to stand, hands still open at his sides, watching her with an expression that isn't triumph. It looks almost like curiosity, Somewhere near the door, Wei Jing has stopped breathing. For a long moment, nobody moves. The elders along the sidewall exchange looks that Min, even disoriented, recognizes instantly, the particular alarm of men who built their authority on a story that just cracked in front of 60 witnesses. She lowers her fist slowly. Again, she says. Her voice is steady, but something underneath it isn't. He shakes his head once, gently. I don't think that's necessary. I didn't land a single strike. No, he agrees, you didn't. Then we're not finished. He looks at her for a moment, not with pity, which she could have handled, would have known exactly what to do with, but something closer to respect, which she has almost no experience being offered by a stranger and doesn't immediately know how to hold. I think, he says carefully, we might already be finished with the part that mattered. The eldest of the elders rises from his seat along the wall, a man named Han Se, who has sat in judgment of this hall's matches since before May Lin was born. His voice carries the particular authority of someone unused to being contradicted. The challenge is not resolved. A second round will restore the honor of this hall. The stranger turns to him and bows respectfully, unhurriedly, the same way he removed his shoes at the door. With respect, elder. I didn't come here tonight to take anything from this hall. I think a second round would only prove something none of us need proven again. Han Se's jaw tightens. You would refuse. I would rather leave the outcome exactly as honest as it already is. He turns, walks the length of the hall, past the wall of watching portraits, past Wei Jing, whose expression has not changed since the 9th second, and stops in front of the largest frame on the wall. The founder Min's grandfather, painted decades ago in the stiff formal posture of a man who built something meant to outlast him. He bows to the portrait deeply, longer than protocol requires. Then he turns to Min, and for the first time all evening he uses a name. My name is Brusser, he says. I hope your grandfather would have understood why I came. He walks toward the door. Nobody stops him. Nobody in that moment entirely knows how. If you've made it this far, you already understand why this story stuck with me enough to make a video about it. The idea that the fight someone spends years preparing for isn't always the fight that actually changes them. If that hits something for you, drop a like before we finish and stay with me through the last part. What happens between Min and Wei Jing after everyone else leaves the hall tonight is honestly the part of this story I think about the most. The hall empties slowly. The elders leave first, murmuring among themselves in tones Min doesn't try to decipher. The students filter out in 2s and 3s, careful not to look directly at her, the way people avert their eyes from something they don't yet know how to talk about. Wei Jing stays. He finds her sitting on the edge of the training floor, knees drawn up, staring at the same patch of empty air where her final strike should have landed. 11 years ago, he was the boy she put on his back in this exact room. Tonight, he sits down beside her without asking permission, the way only someone who has earned the right to sit beside you does. You've never lost before, he says finally. I still haven't. Her voice is quiet, but it isn't bitter. He never touched me. He never even tried to. She turns her closed fist over in her lap, studying it the way you study something unfamiliar. 11 years. I thought the proof was in landing the strike, making them fold, making everyone in this room watch it happen so there'd be no argument left afterward. And tonight the only person who needed the argument settled was me. She says it slowly, like she's hearing it for the first time as she says it. He didn't need to win. He didn't need anyone in this room to agree he was better than me. He just was what he was, and let the room decide whatever it wanted to decide about that. Wei Jing is quiet for a while. Outside, the street sounds of Chinatown continue as if nothing happened. Vendors closing for the night. A distant conversation in Cantonese. The ordinary hum of a city that has no idea what just occurred in this room. I've watched every fight you've had since I lost to you, he says eventually. I always thought I was watching you prove something to them. He nods toward the wall, the portraits, the empty chairs where the elders sat. I don't think that's what I watched tonight. She doesn't answer right away. When she finally speaks, her voice has changed. Not defeated, not smaller, just different in a way that will take her weeks to fully understand. I think I watched myself stop needing to. In the weeks that followed, the story of the 9-second match spread through Chinatown's martial arts community the way stories do when nobody can quite agree on what actually happened. Some said Bruce Lee had humiliated the champion of the Chung Association. Others said he'd refused to fight her at all, and the entire encounter had been staged for reputation. Neither version was entirely true, and Min never bothered correcting either one. What actually changed was quieter and harder to put in a headline. 2 years later, Min Chu sat in the master's chair of the Chung Association, not because she demanded it, and not because a fight forced the elder's hand, but because Han Su himself, the same elder who once insisted a second round was necessary to restore the hall's honor, proposed her name to the board without being asked. She never learned exactly what changed his mind. She suspected she already knew. She stopped counting her record after that night. Wei Jiang still jokes decades later that she is technically undefeated and technically not, and that she is the only martial artist he's ever met who finds the ambiguity funny instead of unbearable. She kept training the same way. Every morning before dawn, hands wrapped, forms run twice before her first student arrived. But something in why she did it had shifted quietly, permanently, the way a room feels different once you stop needing everyone in it to agree with you. This story is a dramatized, fictionalized account inspired by the legend and philosophy of Bruce Lee. Some characters, dialogue, and events have been created for narrative and entertainment purposes. If this story meant something to you, if the idea of finally being able to stop proving yourself to a room that was never going to fully agree with you resonated even a little, I want to point you towards something. I wrote a book called The Bruce Lee Code: Philosophy, Training, Diet, and Discipline of the Man Who Redefined Human Limits. It's not a biography in the traditional sense. It's a breakdown of exactly how he thought, how he trained, how he built the kind of stillness that let him walk into a room like Min's Hall and never needed to validate himself. It's available now on Amazon and on Hotmart. Links are in the description below. And before you go, I want to know what impressed you more tonight: the 9 seconds where he never threw a single strike, or the moment afterward when he chose to walk away from a fight he'd already technically won. Tell me in the comments. I read every one.